Hello everybody and welcome to a brand new Elder Scrolls Online video with me, Sherman. Today guys, we are taking a look at if hybrids, actual hybrids, are a feasible option in today's game. You know, in ESO today. Right now on the live servers, they are not a really viable option, because there isn't enough things in the game that give you that capability to create something that's hybrid and viable. Like super viable. But because of the changes that were made to gear sets, viability has become more. And they are a lot more viable than they were before. So I'm on the PTS right now, and we're going to be taking a look at this build that I created. And this is a build I play on live, but it's not built this exact way. But it's making me change my mind about how I look at the game in a lot of ways, because of gear sets, how they work, how they function, and pretty much everything to that distinction. You want a build that's going to play the way you want. And hybrids have always been a hard thing to kind of put together because of the lack of all the different stuff. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at this build. We're going to see its ins and outs, its functionality, and how well it will be a hybrid. Now, this isn't your typical Magicka Stamina hybrid to the larger degree. This is a hybrid that literally plays off all three stats. And it plays off all three stats in such a way it works really well. So, let's take a look at it. This is the Frozen Wrath. Now, the build itself uses a lot of unique skills. It uses a mixture of ice and physical damage. Now, if I was going to make this on light armor and make it an ice damage build, it would be a lot more powerful. I'm not going to lie, because of the fact that I'm focusing more on one elemental type of damage instead of trying to focus on a bunch of different elemental types of damage or different types of damage. So, as you can see, I have Gripping Shards, I have Arctic Blast. Those are my two main ice abilities. But I'm also using a gear set that gives me ice damage, and that is Ice Heart. Ice Heart's a really powerful set now because of the fact that it gives you critical chance and not just spell crit. This makes it a very, very good set for hybrid play because it gives you critical chance across the board. But then you look at what it does. When you deal critical damage, you have a 20% chance to gain a damage shield that absorbs 5,000 damage for 6 seconds. While that shield holds, you deal frost damage to all enemies within 5 meters of you every second. This effect can occur once every 6 seconds, and the damage scales off your highest weapon or spell damage. Well, in my case, it's going to be my weapon damage. As you can see, I have 3811. But when I buff myself, with the thing that increases my weapon damage, you're going to see I go up to 4,537 in weapon damage. Now you're going to notice my crit chance is also equal, like across the board. And I haven't even put CP into the build yet. And that's another thing that you have to look at when you look at builds. How much can you get into a build with not just CP, but what you can get into a build with just the stuff you have in the game. Your stats, your gear sets, your traits, your Mundus Stone, all that. So, let's take a look at all of it. I am running the Thief Mundus Stone. I'm running 4 Divines on the smaller pieces. As you can see, I'm also running 3 Infused. And this is to maximize my stat value. I'm also running 4 health enchants here, 3 tri-stats, 2 tri-runes, and 2 weapon damage enchants, along with a tri-stat recovery on an infused trait jewelry. My weapons are infused main hand with the magic damage absorption, and my offhand is Nirnhoned with frost damage, and then on my back bar I am running a weapon damage enchant on the bow. This is to maximize your damage potential with both magicka and stamina. And then when you look at the sets I'm running, I am running Medusas, which is just gives you a ton of crit, and this is heavy armor. So this is a 5-piece heavy, 1 medium, 1 light. Here's the medium, here's the light, and the rest is all heavy. So I'm technically a heavy armor damage dealing build. Now this build I play more for my own preference, and I play it as a damage dealer on the live server, and it does not have these stats at all. Like, it's not even these stats are pretty much the same except for the health recovery, and I have magic recovery instead of a tri-rune on the live server, so I have a higher mag recovery than I do this setup. But I have a little bit higher spell and physical resistance as well on the live server, along with a little bit of other things because I do have CP put into my character. Again, this is no CP, so this is what my character looks like without any CP put into him. So the build itself is really powerful as is, because if you look, I have this really high health, I have a really high stamina, but why don't I have a really high magicka? Because if you look at the abilities I'm using, gripping shards, it scales off your max health for damage only, not the crit chance, not the weapon or spell damage. It only scales off your max health. Arctic Winds or Arctic Blast also scales off your max health. The healing does. So the damage scales off your max magicka and max spell damage. So I can actually crank this up pretty high when you look at what I do here. I'm going to go ahead and buff up, and then I'm going to, sorry, wrong button. Go ahead and do that. And then when you look, I actually have a 4,667 spell damage with a 5,000 weapon damage, but my crit's still pretty low, right? Well, if I cast my other buff, you'll see I actually get a much higher crit chance. And that's because I'm using something to increase my weapon crit, not my spell crit. My spell crit's 40% almost. So I can get it to 40% if I go into my CP and I increase this alone. I can get to almost 40% crit. Pretty much 40%. And this allows this build to crit a lot with that higher spell damage. So hybrid play isn't about just having high max magicka, high stamina. It's about putting together a build that plays off the highest stat values along with the highest weapon and spell damage capabilities and the high stat combinations. So since my spells, most of my abilities scale off my max health, scale off my max stamina, and max weapon damage, doing this allows me to create this build that allows me a higher damage output. And yes, it's in heavy armor. It'd probably be better if I went with like medium armor or even a light armor build for this. But because I play this build on live, and I use it primarily for soloing things like world bosses, dungeons, not just public dungeons, but dungeons, and even arenas, and even, you know, world bosses, like you name it, I solo it. I even try to solo trials with it. But I only do that for my own game. Now, why am I doing it for my own game? Because I like to solo play. I don't have a problem interacting with other people or communicating with other people. I have a problem with other people telling me how to play. and that's the truth. I do. And that's because I like to play how I like. And the game being how to play the way you want is what I really like about it. And I like that ability to play the way I want. That's why I like characters like this. That's why other people like characters like this. They like to have that ability to kind of create the character they want to play. Now, I come from a background of playing a lot of different MMOs. This build is based loosely on the Ice Death Knight from World of Warcraft. That's where I got the concept from. I really love playing that class in World of Warcraft, and I really wanted it in ESO. For a long time I've been trying to create it, and for a long time I've had trouble doing it. Now I can do it efficiently and effectively because of these changes. So that's why when you look at the way hybrids work and you try to say, okay, well, a hybrid has to have equal value of stats, it's not really how it works. It helps, but trying to equalize the stats perfectly leaves you really underpowered, because you're giving up more in something to equalize everything, and it doesn't really work that well sometimes. Taking certain things and using them to your advantage is what's going to make it better for you. Now, I didn't show you the other set I was running. So I showed you I was running Medusas. Medusas is a great set. Crit galore, and then you gain minor force at all times, increasing crit damage by 10%. It's pretty good, right? But what about the other set? Well, the other set I'm running is Shulks. And the reason I'm running Shulks on this build is because, one, it adds max health. The 2 and 5 piece also add weapon and spell damage. And then the 4 piece adds more crit chance. The 5th piece, you gain minor heroism at all times while you're in combat, generating 1 ultimate every 1.5 seconds. Now, why is that 1.5 second ultimate gain good? It allows me to use ultimates more often. The more ultimates I can cast, the more skills I use, the more I use my character, the stronger they become, the more damage output I get, even in heavy armor. Now, I've been practicing with this on the both this target dummy and on the Iron Atronach. And on the Iron Atronach, I can pull about 45k, which for me, somebody who doesn't have the skill and ability to play like somebody who's really skilled, probably could pull maybe 60-70k if they were really good, and didn't make a lot of mistakes like I do. So that's one of the things you got to look at, and that's in the perfect scenario, you know, that's in the perfect group, all that kind of stuff. But in this case, I can actually do pretty good. Now, I'm not saying it's going to be perfect for everybody. I'm saying that for me, this build works the way it's designed to work. It's a high damage output, it's got high survivability, and it allows me to solo things a lot more efficiently. I don't kill things, well, I kill things really fast, but at the same time I have that survivability from the heavy armor, the higher health, the fact that I have a shield that pops every 6 seconds, pretty much non-stop, allows this character to be really fluent with everything they do. And that's what hybrid play is really about. It's about being fluent in your capabilities. So like when you say, okay, well, I want to do really good damage with my build, how do I do that? Well, it's a matter of setting up the right kind of combination. Now, I'm not going to do the big target dummy here. I'm actually just going to show you on this, and I'm only going to do about 12 to 15k because of the fact that I'm so out of practice. And you can see I do a lot of AoE damage with this build. And you're going to see I do a lot of heavy attacks as well. And that's just basically to keep my stamina coming in. And I'll even show you right now. You can see, like, I only pulled about 13k DPS. I did pull uh, 13k earlier on that dummy. And just because I'm pulling 13k doesn't mean I can't get more out of the build. I can. There's the things I could do to adjust the build to make it work more better by not having as much resource issues, because that's one of the big problems with ESO's design. Is it's designed to be a game where you play off of the disadvantage you have. Now, being somebody using a lot of stamina abilities, like say Whirlwind, for example. Whirlwind does a lot of damage, as you can see, but I use a lot of resources by using it. So if I do a lot more heavy attacks, I can actually keep my resources coming in. And we'll go ahead and burn these down a little bit, and you guys can see like how much resources I get per heavy attack. And that's because that's how heavy armor works. Heavy armor works best when you heavy attack. In fact, it's probably the best armor to use for heavy attack builds versus medium or light. And that's not a negative on it, it's just the way it's designed. Now, the more recovery you have and the more heavy attacks you do, the more effective it is, because every time you do a heavy attack, you're going to also gain resources back. So you're going to get your tick of resource return from your recovery and that heavy attack return. So you get that combination of both. So it's really good for that. But back to the subject of hybrids. Are hybrids going to be viable this update? Yes. Viability is something hybrids are going to see a massive increase to because of the sets all being hybridized. Hybridizing the sets is what's really going to make hybrid play much more effective. And this is just one build. Now remember, there's hundreds of thousands of different builds you can make. And now that you can make a bunch of builds hybrid, you can create some really unique and fun ways to play. So hybrid play isn't about being necessarily the best. It's about being somebody who can take on a lot of different situations because of the fact that you have more tools to your arsenal than somebody who's built just for magic or somebody who's built just for stamina. You actually have access to all those other tools now that you can use more fluently and equally to create a build that can offer, say, group support, damage, and tankiness to your group that gives you that greater survivability, so you can do DPS more effectively, or do healing more effectively, or do even be in a tank more effectively. There's a lot of things you can do with this that allows you to be more flexible. And I think that's what the intentions of the game were in the beginning, was to make the game really flexible for players so they had opportunities to create the kind of characters they wanted. And it's taken a long time to get here, and I know that frustrates a lot of people. But at the same time, you have to understand that when they started working on this game, they were trying to create a game that would compete with World of Warcraft in a lot of ways, but also compete with its other competitors such as Guild Wars 2, Star Wars The Old Republic, and Final Fantasy 14. So you have all these different games that play very similar, but they don't allow the flexibility. I mean, even if you look at Star Wars The Old Republic, they're introducing a new system that allows you to switch between different things, different skill sets, based on your choice. So if you wanted to be, say, a Jedi Guardian that uses dual lightsabers, you can. If you want to be a trooper, you're not stuck with just rifles or cannons. You can actually switch to these other tech classes, all the tech classes. This allows for flexibility. This allows people to play how they want and to enjoy their characters how they want. It's not just about the story or the end game or whatever, because again, In game is your perception of in game. If your perception of in game is doing crafting, harvesting, building economy, that's your in game. If your in game is just decorating houses, that's your in game. If yours is doing costumes or customizing your character's look, that's your in game. If your in game is doing trials and dungeons, that's your in game. If your in game is PvP, that's your in game. Because that's your perspective of end game. So, people playing hybrids doesn't mean that they're going to play hybrids in just trials, or just dungeons, or just PvP. They're going to play them all over in every spectrum of the game. And this is going to allow people to create and customize their characters to their needs. So having this hybridization on sets allows greater hybridization throughout the game, allowing people to truly play how they want. And this is what makes ESO that much better of a game than what it was. And it's not a negative, it's a positive. Even for those who min-max their characters to the meta, or min-max their characters to the meta PvP, whatever. There's a lot of things you can do now that makes your character more flexible to fit the needs of those kind of groups. And I think that you know, we might even see a shift in the meta because of it. And if we do, I hope it's for the better. I hope it's to allow people to really kind of create and customize their characters to their liking, instead of being stuck in this traditional sense of, hey, you got to follow these strict rules. Now you're more open-ended to be more flexible, more fluent in what you do. And I'm just really excited that they're doing this because of that fact. In fact, my excitement's pretty much over the moon. It's incredible that they've done this for the player base. So, if you're wondering if you can play hybrids in the next update, you're going to be able to play hybrids the way you want. And I hope you guys enjoy it. But that's pretty much it for this video, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, you know what's coming next. If you like this video, hit that like button. If you guys want to see more videos by me, you can subscribe. And if you do subscribe, I do suggest clicking that notification bell to be notified when I post new videos. Other than that, I want to thank you all for watching. Until next time, have a wonderful day. And this guy might see you in game. Bye.